Hey, what's up everyone? Today we're going to show you how to change the fuel pump on a Nissan 300ZX. It doesn't really matter if it's a turbo or non-turbo, it's going to be the same sort of plan of attack. However, 2 and 4 seaters are a little bit different. The 4-seater, sometimes you need to pry up on the trunk pan to get access to the fuel sending unit to be able to pull it out. Sometimes you can twist it, get away with it by just pulling it out. But here we have a 2-seater and we're going to start pulling everything out. We've got 10 mil flatheads, pliers. We've got a Phillips somewhere, I don't know where I set it, hammer, and an 8 mil ratchet for the fuel sending unit. First things first, just pull your both of these covers off and get access to the bolts for this parcel tray. So now once you have both your covers off, there's 2 10 mil nuts right here on each side. Remove them, and also peel back your carpet here, and there's 1, should be 2, 3, and 4 Phillips screws. Remove each of them, pull your parcel tray out. Pull your gas cap before you start, so that way you don't have to worry about the lines being pressurized and making a mess. Now we've got the parcel tray removed. Now you've got access to your fuel sending unit, which is right here. 4 Phillips bolts. If you want, just go ahead and disconnect both of these. The connector will be jammed up under the centerpiece. You can remove it for slightly more clearance, however it is not necessary. So now we've got that off. We've got this insert to get to this. We'll just pull them out and we'll probably push. Go ahead and do this now, but we'll push this grommet through just so we don't have any issues trying to move this around while it's still attached to the sending unit. Now we're at the fuel sending unit. Now, you'll see here, there's 2 spring clamps. Those, easy enough with your pliers. They're probably both return hoses, and this one probably siphons from the other side. Just pull both of them off. That's what your hammer and pliers are for. You will just place this right here. Obviously, unless you have fuel line disconnects, this is the easiest way to do that. This one's pretty much disconnected. Just push it out of the way, leave it to the side, do the same thing here. This will have a spring clamp the same way that the fuel lines in the engine bay have. Just work your clamp back onto the hard line. Odds are it'll need unscrewed about the max amount. So now we've got that spring clamp off. We're going to get this closer one. Minimal gas spillage. Now it's starting to flow a little bit. Alright, and just like that, your fuel lines are off. You just push them back. Yes, there will be a little bit of pressure. It'll leak out slightly, but here's our new fuel pump. This is an OEM unit. The whole reason we're even here, it's not that our fuel pump is bad. We're here because it has a twin turbo fuel pump installed for an NA application. That's just overkill. Previous owner did it for whenever the day had come that he would turbo it, but just didn't get around to it. So we're going to pull that out, put our factory unit back in, switch everything over on it, and reinstall it. So now that we've got all of these fuel lines off, you can dry it up, clean it up in here. Usually it's pretty rusty and grimy, or you just let the fuel dry out. And then you've got, I believe, 6 8mm bolts, and yep, this one appears to have been replaced, but it's still an 18. You'll just crack all these loose and remove. Well, that bolt was completely stripped, literally completely. So now we've got it loosened. You obviously want to make sure you have a fuel tank O-ring, or else you're not going to be able to put this back in, because usually it contorts when you pull it out. Ooh, we may be lucky. This one has been replaced. I've never went in the car and had one be the same color as the one I'm installing. Usually they're the factory black ones. So this is kind of the annoying part. This little bracket up here tends to get in the way. As you can see, it's kind of already been bent out of the way, but you can bend it slightly just to give you a little bit more clearance. Now just slow and steady pull out your fuel sending unit, and try not to make too terribly of a mess inside the car. I'm just going to let it hang here, drain, so that way I have minimal loss within the car. Now that you got your pump out, you can set your cover back on just to prevent anything from going in. Now we're going to take our pump assembly. Now we're going to take our pump assembly in the garage, take some of it apart, and see if we can get it switched out here. So if you've just got your replacement pump, the first step is to switch over this rubber grommet. Best thing I can say, put it in the sun with some screwdrivers on the side to kind of stretch it out, and then oil it up when you put it on the new one. We put our new pickup on this. It's not new, it's actually the one that came with it. I needed this little clip here to hold it on, which I did take off of this one. So all you're doing here, it's pretty simple, honestly. You'll remove these two, I believe 10mm, if not they're 8mm bolts. Actually, they're 8mm, so you'll remove both of them, and you'll switch these little assemblies over to your new one. You can wait to either till you actually put this in and then bolt these up, or you can just remove these and put them on after the fact once you get the new pump in. Undo your spring clamp here. We're going to be reusing this submersible hose, so we'll do it from the bottom side. And you also want to remove these sheaths off the positive terminal. Remove that with a Phillips or 8mm, and the same on this side with the ground. And then it's all just plug and play. Unbolt this, allow the pickup to come off, and swap pumps. Now we've got the old pump removed. Well, new pump, whatever. It is pretty new looking. So here's the pile of stuff that we have, except for the bolt down here. This bolt has a washer. The bolts for the power and negative do not. They are threaded themselves. So we're going to throw a little bit of oil here on this port so we can slip it in here a little easier. And then we're just going to fit it back. First thing, get this feed hose on, get the clamp on, get it centered, then we will add our positive and negative. After that, we will bolt our pickup down here. We will add our braces here on the side, which are right here, and then our fuel pump will be ready to drop back in. So now we're all bolted up, secured the feed. Now to install these little guys, and she's ready to drop in. It's actually a lot quicker than I expected. This is a lot quicker than I expected. It's officially time to put her back in the car. When you install it will sit about this way. So just want to make sure you get your float in without getting it hung up on anything, or else you could damage it and you will no longer be able to read how much fuel you have. Now when you get the pump in far enough that you can move it down past this metal bracket, kind of just rotate it, slide it back and forth as you can pop each of these hoses out to get it above. Now, you got all your fuel lines on the top side. You can just spin it until you get it to where the bolt holes line up. Now, do not forget your O-ring. Put your O-ring down first. I've made this mistake before. Just put it down, forget about it, so that way it's there when you go to reinstall. This part, I say it's better to put your bolts in first, so that way your pump is actually mounted, and therefore you can force these fuel lines back onto the hard lines. Makes it a little bit easier. So we're just gonna put each of these back, just hand tighten them, so that way you can make sure that they get threaded. Now, I haven't put the last one in because it's stripped. We'll wait and put that in last. Just go through here. Don't tighten one side down too fast. Just kind of move around. Make sure you even the load at which you're tightening. It's not like serious like it is for head gaskets and all that, but you do want to make sure that you don't like pinch your O-ring, so to speak. So that would not be fun. So then you're out $15 O-ring and have to go back in here and do this all again. So now we'll throw in a little strip bolt. We'll just finger tighten it, see what we can do. Just snug it down so it's not out of place. I mean, it's not completely necessary at this point in time. Sweet. Okay, so here, what I like to do to make it a little bit easier, I put a little bit of engine oil inside the hose, so it'll make it slide easier, and the fuel itself will clean the oil or break it down, so there's not much to worry about. Just make sure you get enough. Make sure your hose clamps are on first, since you removed the sending unit, you may have dropped them. Just push it back till you get the front part on, and then I push the curve like of the hose that's under here. When you push on it, it forces this side up and pushes it onto the hard line. If you don't have an impact, just make sure you got the right size screwdriver, and you should be able to get this pretty snug. You're nearly going to get both sides of the spring clamp to be touching each other, especially if it's factory hose. You 100% will. However, if you put a new hose in here, it may be a little difficult at first. So, now that the fuel pump is changed, what we're going to do, pull our cover out. Usually the cover points side to side. Just fish our connectors back through. covers back, thread in by your finger these 4 Phillips. Just make sure they are not too tight. I guess these aren't as crucial to be finger tightened because it's not like they're going into metal. They go into like Teflon. So really about any way you put them in, they will find their way to go correctly. Make sure to reconnect your connections. Just want to get a finger back behind the connector as you close them, just to give you that little bit of structure that you need. Now, fuel pump's in. Our next step, to get out of the trunk, put our parcel tray back. Well, I guess we don't have to get out yet. Just when you take your parcel tray and put it back in, make sure you tuck this front side up here so that way you don't have the fabric on top of your interior. Now once you've done that, take your little rear plastics, give them a nice little slap and get them tucked in place. Now as you see, everything is done and it's time to go for a test start. Do not forget to tighten your gas cap up again. So we just hit the key. It did prime. I don't know if it caught it on camera. It happened a little fast, but it primed. So shut it off. Wait a second. Again. Clutch in. And she's alive. And that, guys, is how you change the fuel pump, stock fuel pump, in a Nissan 1990 to 96 Nissan 300ZX. If you want to see more videos like this or some daily vlogs or some Z content, make sure you drop a like, comment, subscribe down below, and stay tuned for our next video. Thanks.